tuloy-tuloy naman ang trabaho nitong mga sectoral representatives at naka-hold over lang sila from the previous administration. Wala naman natatanggal, kaya't yung mga programa, sige pa rin. Hindi naman nauudlot, hindi naman napapara. Yun nga lang, walang makabagong pinuno, kaya't kinakailangan talaga ma-appoint na sa lalong madaling panahon.
Opo. Salamat, Madam Chair, Mr. President. Talagang importante yung renewal palagi, hindi lang ng mga institusyon or commission, pero at yung mga programa niya, kundi nga yung mga tao sa loob nila. So, as a follow-up question, magkano po sa NAPSI budget para sa 2023 ang allotted sa pagdaos ng National Sectoral Assembly? At kung may funding na allocated, itong National Sectoral Assembly po ba ay may intensyon na maghalal ng bagong set ng sectoral councils at pagkatapos pumili magnomina ng mga sectoral representatives? At kailan po natin inaasahan itong bagong grupo ng sectoral councils at representatives sa NAPSI?
Yes. Ang totoo, itong National Sectoral Assembly, walang budget na linoloob ang sa NAPSI. Hinihingi lang to sa Office of the President. At matagal-tagal na rin na hindi nagkakaroon ng assembly mula pa noong 2015. Para nakalimutan na yata. Kaya't kinakailangan siguro magkaroon ng National Assembly kahit hindi masyadong malaking budget, kunin na lang sa OP o sa DSWD na mabuo na ito at yung sectoral representatives ay talagang kinatawan ng kanilang iba't ibang sektor.
Opo, Madam Chair, Mr. President. Sana nga po sa pag-udyok ng Secretary kay Presidente na i-appoint na yung mga dapat i-appoint, ay baka maisabay na rin po yung pag-udyok or hindi ko po alam kung maaring pagtutulungan ng department at ng OP para magkaroon ng resources para sa pagdaos nitong National Sectoral Assembly. Para nga po mabigyang daan yung pagbubuo ng mga councils at pag-nomina at pagtakda ng mga representante sa commission. Likewise, Madam Chair, I'd like to know the institutional support provided by the NAPSI Secretariat and the member national government agencies to support the operational costs of basic sectoral representation, basic sector participation. Kung halimbawa yung basic sectors ay tumatanggap ng rata, representation and transportation allowance, sapat po ba yung rata na ito? Sapat po ba para i-finance yung trabaho ng sektor? Yung mga ahensya na kasapi ng NAPSI, nagbibigay ba sila ng sapat at kinakailangang pondo at technical assistance sa mga sektor?
Magkano ngayon? Napakababa nga nung rata natin at nasa 13,000, 8,500. Kung tutuusin talagang hindi sapat yung rata per director, sa vice chair, sa sectoral reps. Talagang ang baba-baba. At matagal na sila nakikisuyo sa DBM at sa COA, nadagdagan naman kasi hindi naman talaga sapat na rata or support for operations itong binibigay nating mga halaga.
Salamat, Madam Chair, Mr. President. At yung mga member agencies sa NAPSI, nagbibigay ba sila ng technical assistance sa mga sektor?
Yes, meron naman silang budget kahit papano for institutional support, capacity building, training, and so on. 1 million nga lang per year for all the different sectors.
Wow. Noted, Madam Chair, Mr. President. Huling tanong ko na lamang po sa NAPSI. Section 7, parenthesis 8 of RA 8425 mandates the NAPSI to submit an annual report to Congress, including but not limited to all aspects of its operations and program and project implementation, financial status, and other relevant data. Maaari po bang itanong sa committee chair kung itong mga probisyon ay substantially complied with by the NAPSI Secretariat? At kung ang komite ay nakatanggap ng anumang mga ulat, at kung oo, maaari po bang makahingi ng kopya ng mga ulat na ito?
Yes, taon-taon naman daw sila nagsasubmit. Yung huli daw nung Marso ng 2022.
Salamat
Pero hihingi po tayo ng kopya kasi
Yes.
ako mismo hindi ko pa nakikita.
Alright. Maraming salamat, Madam Chair, Mr. President, at aasahan ko rin po na this representation at yung iba pa pong mga kasama ay makatanggap din ng kopya para din po mas magabayan tayong lahat paano i-oversee yung pagpapatupad ng NAPSI nung batas niya at masuportahan ng maayos o magabayan o maitulak ang commission kaugnay ng annual budget exercises natin. So, huling maikling manifestation na lamang po, Mr. President, Madam Chair, without prejudice to the work of the NAPSI, especially the basic sectors. I was asking that question or these questions as I feel that despite its important mandate, NAPSI is being neglected and marginalized as a government instrumentality in our fight against poverty. Lalo na't sabihin na natin, we need the whole of society, whole of government to address poverty and even more than poverty, inequality. I hope that through the proper committee, the Senate will be able to revisit the mandate of NAPSI, introduce some innovative reforms, strengthen the institution, at kaugnay nito, final call ko po, ma-reconsider na ibalik ang NAPSI sa ilalim ng Office of the President.
Okay.
Opo. Bilang ito'y vital government basic sector organizational vehicle to address poverty and inequality. If government is serious about social reform and transformation, simulan sana ito sa pagtatalaga ng mga opisyal ng NAPSI, pagtataguyod ng mga asemblea ng batayang sektor, at pagtatalaga ng kanilang kinatawan at pagbubukas ng espasyo sa mga pambansang ahensya upang makalahok ang mga sektor ng mahihirap. At muli, sa pamamagitan nga ng without prejudice to DSWD at with all due respect, pagbabalik sa OP, pagbabalik bayan ng NAPSI sa OP. Maraming salamat po at pati sa pasensya, pagpapasensya po ninyo, Madam Chair, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, and we join Senator Ontiveros in supporting the effort of the National Anti-Poverty Commission in overcoming its own poverty. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Risa Ontiveros.
Mr. President.
Majority Leader.
Yes, Mr. President. Mr. President, at this juncture, no member wishes to interpolate and ask questions on the budget of the Department of Social Welfare and its attached agencies. I would just like to make a motion that we recognize the distinguished gentleman from Davao's province, no other than Senator Bongo, for his short manifestation, Mr.
The
President.
gentleman from Davao, Senator Bongo, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. To start, I would like to put on record my full support for the proposed budget of the Department of Social Welfare and Development and its attached agencies. Mr. President, I cannot overemphasize the importance of this department in making sure that our fellow countrymen are given sufficient and adequate social services for their daily and basic needs. Therefore, we must make sure that every peso goes directly to our less fortunate countrymen, most especially in these trying times. Gamitin po natin ng tama ang pondo upang maipabot sa ating mga kababayang mahirap at nangangailangan nating mga kababayan. Nagpapasalamat din po ako sa DSWD sa inyong effort na maipaabot ang tulong ng gobyerno sa mga tao sa pamamagitan ng Sustainable Livelihood Program, SLP, Assistance to Individual in Crisis Situation, AICS, Pantawid Pamilyang Pilipino Program, Social Pension Program for Indigent Senior Citizens,
Diretso na.
at iba pang programa habang tayo ay patuloy na nakikibaka sa epekto ng pandemya. Sa ating mga masisipag na social workers, maraming salamat po sa inyong walang humpay na pagsiservisyo sa bawat mamamayang Pilipino. Mr. President, I also just want to particularly mention the need to increase the budget for the social pension of our indigent senior citizens. We already passed a law increasing their pension to 1,000 from the current 500. Baka po magawa natin ang paraan na mapondohan na itong dagdag pension para sa ating mga senior citizen. Mr. Sponsor, may request pa ako, sandali. Mr. President, as I have mentioned during the hearing, I hope the department will sustain its operations in various malasakit centers across the country. Bilang isa sa mga ahensyang napapaloob sa malasakit center, sana po na matulungan natin ang mga pasyente sa kanilang hospital billing, request for financial and transportation assistance at iba pa. Kayo po ang pag-asa ng ating mga pasyenteng nangailangan ng tulong financial, Mr. President. I also want to underscore the need to continuously fund the Balik Probinsya program wherein the DSWD provides financial assistance to those in Metro Manila who want to go back to their provinces. Naging malaking tulong po ito nung panahon ni dating Pangulong Duterte para sa gustong magsimula muli sa kanilang probinsya. Sana po ay may pagpatuloy ito at mapag-aralan. Kung wala na po yung programa, Madam Sponsor, Madam President, kung sana po ay matulungan yung gustong bumalik po ng probinsya. That is all, good sponsor. I trust that with your guidance, the DSWD will able to secure funds for the priority programs which are aimed to uplift the lives of our countrymen. Maraming salamat po, Mr. President, and good sponsor, Madam Chair.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much, Senator Go, for the support.
Thank you, Senator Bongo, Majority Leader.
Yes, Mr. President. Mr. President, no member wishes to interpolate or ask any questions on the budget of DSWD and its attached agency. And so I move now, Mr. President, that we close the period of interpellations and debate on the budget of Department of Social Welfare and Development, Office of the Secretary, Council for the Welfare of Children, Juvenile Justice and Welfare Council, National Anti-Poverty Commission, and National Commission on Indigenous Peoples be deemed submitted for the body's consideration. I so move, Mr. President.
There's a motion by the Majority Leader to close the period of interpellation and consider submitted the budget of the Department of Social Welfare and Development and its attached agencies.
Mr. President, before you bang the gavel, I just wanted to put on record that the budget of DSWD is 210,631,390,000 pesos. I move for the previous question, Mr. President.
Is there any objection? There being none, the motion is approved.
Thank you and congratulations to the DSWD family. Mr. President, with the consent of the body, I move that we consider the budget of Cooperative Development Authority. I so move, Mr. President.
Is there any objection? There being none, motion is carried.
Mr. President, the budget of Cooperative Development Authority is 653,174,000 pesos. No member wishes to interpolate or ask any questions on the budget of CDA. I move that the budget be deemed submitted for the body's consideration. I so move, Mr. President.
There's a motion by the Majority Leader to close the period of interpellation and consider submitted the budget of the Cooperative Development Authority. Is there any objection? There being none, the motion is approved.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, Majority Leader.
Thank you, and we congratulate our distinguished colleague, Senator Amy Marcos, for a fruitful day, Mr. President. Mr. President, I now move that we consider the budget of the Philippine Information Agency. I so move, Mr. President.
Is there any objection? There being none, motion is carried.
Mr. President, the total budget of the Philippine Information Agency is 431,208,000. And upon meeting and discussions with the head of Philippine Information Agency, who is here present, Mr. President, he clarified, Mr. President, that the letter that is supposed to be sent to the office of the press secretary was accidentally sent to the office of the Senate President. And we accept the apology, Mr. President.
So noted.
And so, at this juncture, I move that we close the period of interpellations and debate on the budget of the Philippine Information Agency, be deemed submitted for the body's consideration. I so move, Mr. President.
There's a motion by the Majority Leader to close the period of interpellation and consider submitted the budget of the Philippine Information Agency. Is there any objection? There being none, the motion is approved.
Mr. President, I move for a minute suspension.
Session suspended.
Consider the budget of the Department of Foreign Affairs and its attached agencies. So move, Mr. President.
Is there any objection? There being none, motion is approved.
Good morning,
Mr. President, before, may I just put on record that we are deliberating the budget not only of DFA, but also the Office of the Secretary, Foreign Service Institute, Technical Cooperation Council of the Philippines, UNESCO National Commission of the Philippines, Presidential Commission on Visiting Forces. May I move that we recognize the distinguished sponsor of the measure, our Senate President Pro Temp, Senator Lauren Ligarda. So move, Mr. President.
Thank you very much.
Our Senate President Pro Tempore, the chairman of the, is now recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. It's 12:22 in the morning. Your chairperson is now ready to defend the budget of the Department of Foreign Affairs. I would like to cite the following. The Office of the Secretary, we have a budget of 20,356,644. The Foreign Service Institute, 65,716,000. TCCP, 3,083,000. UNESCO, 22,743,000. Presidential Commission VFA, 37,251,000. Having said that, Mr. President, I truly appreciate our dear colleagues who have signified their full support for the budget of the DFA. These are the women and the men who have worked tirelessly during the pandemic, even while we were in lockdown, to repatriate our Filipinos overseas, to help our overseas Filipinos working there, and who have opened embassies and consulates and continue to do so. Having said that, I take note of the fact that there may have been others who wanted to interpolate but will no longer interpolate, but instead they manifest their support for the budget of the Department of Foreign Affairs. Of course, with us is Secretary Manalo, his undersecretaries, his assistant secretaries, and directors, and the heads of the various departments under the Department of Foreign Affairs.
Thank you, Senator Lauren Ligarda. Our majority leader is recognized.
Yes, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. President. And again, we welcome our good secretary, Secretary Manalo, the undersecretaries of the department, and the entire DFA family. Mr. President, the only person listed to ask questions is the former Department of Foreign Affairs Secretary, now our dear colleague, Senator Alan Cayetano. But let me just point out, Mr. President, that the 25th Senator, Senator Doblon, requested that the department be spared from questioning because it's 12:24 a.m. But I will just move, Mr. President, that we recognize Senator Alan Cayetano, Peter Cayetano, Mr. President.
Mr. President,
For his statement.
Yes,
thank you for
Senator
that,
Cayetano is
Mr.
recognized.
President. Marami rin akong request kay Senator Doblon dati na hindi rin napagbigyan eh. Biro lang po yun. Maraming request na napagbigyan. And of course, we here are all very supportive of the DFA family. And I'd like to thank yung kanilang godmother, not only now, but during my time as secretary. I think at that time, 18% yung increase. And because and DBM Secretary Mina is also very supportive, but I think they have a formula that naapektuhan yung ibang tier 1. So I'm just hoping and appealing to both our chairpersons, Senator Sani, him and his father has also been very supportive of DFA. In fact, his father had many projects with Spain and many other countries, and utilizing our diplomats. Siguro ma'am, ang i-bring up ko lang yung LQA, yung living quarters allowance. So during my time, I think pa isa-isa, pero yung total niya, I think Executive Secretary ang nag-approve. Pero ang tagal at luma na, tapos ngayon po na almost umaabot na 60 ang dollar, apektado na. No? So the good senator and our Senate President Pro Temp, knows all of this, di ba? So right now, they're diplomatic, may diploma pero walang atik. Medyo there are many parts of their budget that needs a little bit of tweaking. So, but we will accede to the majority leader and to Senator Doblon and not ask any more questions. Even the, ano yung style ni Senator Tolentino? Senator, half question ba? Ano yun? 0.5 question or yung style ni manifest question? Yeah. So thank you very much, Mr. And may I second the up and coming motion of the majority leader. May I preempt? The best kind of diplomacy is to prevent a crisis rather than to solve it. So may we second whatever motion you are about to manifest.
I am grateful to the former Secretary of Foreign Affairs. I truly appreciate your recognition of our efforts, especially during your term when we increased assistance to National Fund, the Legal Assistance Fund, and when we reopened several posts that were closed 10 years ago. And in fact, many of these posts have been open in the past years, and there are still 4 pending, which we intend to open in the next few years, perhaps in 2024. These are the following posts: Havana in Cuba, Dublin in Ireland, Finland, and Bucharest in Romania, which I had the chance to visit way back in 2001. Of course, we realize that the creation of the Department of Migrant Workers is a big help to Filipinos abroad, but despite that, the Legal Assistance Fund and the Assistance to National Fund were not deleted and not decreased. So the help for our Filipinos living overseas is double in a way because they're still taken care of. So we appreciate, of course, Secretary Manalo and his team who have been here the whole day and waited till now, the wee hours of the morning. Perhaps it's also an opportune time because the Senate President is presiding now. And I think in a way this is unprecedented because we have the movers of the best representatives of our nation facing us today. And we will no longer make it more difficult for them to have a budget which could be better approved. But because of the limited resources of government, we understand that DBM could not give them as much as they deserve and as much as they want. But we will try to work on a better budget, and I am certain in the BICAM, when the GAA is enacted into law, the DFA will have what they truly deserve. So do I hear a motion from the Majority Leader to
Yes,
submit the
Mr.
budget?
President. Mr. President, before I do the proper motion, Mr. President, of course, we would like to thank Senator Dublon and her team. And also, Mr. President, let me just put on record that the Minority Leader actively participated in the budget deliberation in the committee level, and he is also instrumental in the coming up of the committee report of the budget of the Department of Foreign Affairs. I would just like to put that on record because the Bible says, give honor to whom honor is due. And of course, our dear colleagues who are still here with us at 12:30 in the morning, Senators Cayetano, Pia Cayetano, Alan Cayetano, Senator Robin Hood Padilla, Senator Francis Tolentino, Senator Jinggoy Estrada, Senator Win Gatchalian, Senator Bongo, our chairperson of the Senate Committee on Finance, Senator Sani Angara, and Senator Amy Marcos, and Senator Mark Villar, Mr. President, Senator J.V. Ejercito, and of course our Senate President's been in and out of the office, in and out of the building, just
But I'm back.
going around the entire the entire Metro Manila. So we just want to put that on record, Mr.
Yes.
President. And so, Mr. President, no member wishes to interpolate or ask any questions on the budget of the Department of Foreign Affairs, Office of the Secretary, Foreign Service Institute, Technical Cooperation Council of the Philippines, UNESCO, National Commission of the Philippines, Presidential Commission on Visiting Forces. I move, Mr. President, I move that it be deemed submitted for the body's consideration. I so move, Mr. President.
Before I act on the motion, I would just like to thank our men and women of the Department of Foreign Affairs for their service. Thank you for your service. You represent the face of the Filipino people in all the corners of the globe. So we thank you for that. And please continue to help promote the country. The President is doing his greatest to help promote our country, selling the Philippines to investors and tourists alike. So once again, congratulations to all of you. Keep up the good work. So with that, there being no objection to the motion of the majority floor leader, there being none, the motion is that the budget of the Department of Foreign Affairs and its attached agencies is deemed submitted. Congratulations to all. Maybe we ask for a 1-minute suspension
Yes,
to
Mr.
approach
President,
the...
and we'd like to ask the Optical Media Board to
Be ready.
be ready, Mr. President.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Session suspended for 1 minute. This is the final budget, is that correct, Majority Leader, for tonight?
Yes, Mr. President. Mr. President, you are correct. And so at this juncture, I now move that we consider the budget of the Optical Media Board. I so move, Mr. President.
There being no objection, the budget of the Optical Media Board is hereby taken up and considered.
Yes, Mr. President. Mr. President, I move that we recognize the distinguished sponsor of the budget of OMB, no other than the distinguished gentleman from Las Piñas, our Deputy Majority Leader, Senator Mark Villar. I so move, Mr. President.
Our Deputy Majority Floor Leader is recognized.
Thank you,
Senator
Mr. President.
Vasconcelos.
May I present to this body the proposed budget of the Optical Media Board for 2023 with the amount of 71,657,000 based on the committee report. There is no change of the budget in the Senate version to the GAB and GAB to NEP. I am ready to entertain questions from our distinguished colleagues.
Majority Leader.
Mr. President, first to interpolate is the distinguished gentleman from the city of San Juan, our chairperson of the Committee on Labor, Senator Jinggoy Estrada. I move that he be recognized, Mr. President.
The distinguished gentleman from the city of San Juan, Senator Jinggoy Estrada, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, as a proud member of the entertainment industry and as a producer myself, talagang nagdurog ang aking puso sa tuwing nababalitaan natin ang talamak na pamimirata ng pelikula sa ating bansa. Ang pelikulang binuo ng pagkamalikhain at dedikasyon ng mga kapwa ko artista at kasamahan sa industriya. Tunay na nakakalungkot na ang pinaghirapang pelikula na pinagbuhusan ng talento at oras ng mga alagad ng sining ay nalalapastangan lang ng mga pirata, ng mga namimirata. But what's more demoralizing is the fact that there exists no mechanism to address issues like this. Ito at ang kawalan ng malasakit sa industriya at pagiging tapat sa sinumpaang mandato ang malinaw na dahilan sa kawalan ng aksyon para mapanagot at masupil ang mga kawatang ito. Mr. President, during the budget deliberations at the committee level, I moved for the deferment of the approval of the budget of the Optical Media Board, considering the failure of its chairperson and CEO to perform its mandate. As admitted by the chairperson during our hearing, there was 0 administrative cases filed against violators of Republic Act 9239 or the Optical Media Act of 2003. The number of resolved administrative cases during his one-year term since November of 2021 is also 0. To say that this is ineptitude on the part of the OMB leadership is an understatement. In a television interview, I mentioned about giving 1 peso budget to the OMB. Pero kung isipin, malaki pa nga itong piso dahil 0 nga ang performance sa ilalim ng liderato ni Ginoong Marquez. Mr. President, and at the committee level, the chairperson mentioned about cleansing the agency for 1 year. Bagamat napakatagal na cleansing na ito, na umabot na 1 taon, sumasang-ayon naman ako sa magandang hakbangin nitong ahensyang ito. May I ask what are the results of this cleansing, Mr. Chair?
Mr. President, I'd like to present the accomplishment as of September 30 of the Registration and Licensing Division. In terms of licensing from the first quarter, from first to third quarter, you can see we can supply this to you. We have a target of 1,617 licenses with an actual performance of 2,820 in the first quarter, a target of 5,001 for permits, and an actual of 7,076. In the second quarter, the target was 1,507, the actual was 2,010. For permits, it was 3,151, and for the actual, it was 6,303. For the third quarter, the target was 2,149, the actual was 2,098, and the target for permits was 5,311 and 6,882. The OMB has also conducted numerous stakeholders consultations. These were attended of about 400 industry players, including importers, exporters, retailers and distributors, creators, among many others. It also conducted face-to-face consultations with the LGUs of Metro Manila for the fairness, integrity, and transparency, and for change information campaign. There were 1,674 unresolved administrative cases inherited from the former Legal Division Head, Attorney Valenzuela. And as of today, there are 13 approved resolutions, 2 with administrative penalty paid this November 22, amounting to 1,600,000. The reasons for these delays were the non-turnover of files and missing evidence. In addition, there are only 2 lawyers working on the administrative cases. Currently, there are 1,177 administrative cases filed from May to October of 2022. And as of November of 2022, the OMB now has 2 additional lawyers to assume their position and 2 paralegals to help work on the filing and resolving of administrative cases.
Cleansing pa ho yan? I don't think that is cleansing.
Okay. And I'd like to add also the other efforts and accomplishments under the current management. Disposal of unserviceable and seized items. Seized items in 2020 and previous years were disposed on March of 2022. There's the Fairness, Integrity, Transparency for Change information campaign. The OMB has conducted numerous stakeholder consultations. The aggressive information campaign is a response to the current needs of the stakeholders regarding awareness on the mandate of OMB. And in celebration of the World Anti-Counterfeiting Day, the OMB held its pledge wall signing event on June 20, 2022.
With all due respect to my colleague who is defending the budget of the OMB, if possible, if I can suspend the rules so I can directly ask questions to the chairperson involved. Mr. Majority Floor Leader, can I move that to suspend the rules for me to ask questions directly to the chairperson.
Mr. President, we've spoken with our majority of the members of the Senate, and with the consent of the body, with the consent of the minority leader who is here beside me, Mr. President, I move to suspend the rules of the Senate to allow the chairperson of the Optical Media Board, Mr. Jeremy Marquez, chairman of the Optical Media Board, to respond directly to the queries pertaining to the said agency. I so move, Mr. President.
There's a motion to suspend the rules of the Senate to accommodate our colleagues so that the questions can be answered directly by the head of the OMB. There being no objection, motion is approved.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Mr. Chairperson.
Good morning, Mr. President.
Okay, you are the son of the famous former mayor of Parañaque and former, yes, my
Yes,
good
sir.
friend, Joey Marquez. Naging artista ba ho kayo?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right, good. As a member of the movie industry, what what can your agency or the Optical Media Board help or contribute in reviving the ailing movie industry?
Mr. President, that's actually one of the things that we are exploring right now due to the reports recently on movies being pirated. Right now, we are testing a case with a certain producer, Ms. Elaine, to establish the Optical Media Board to be a one-stop shop for producers and copyright holders for them to run to. Right now, kasi, Mr. President, when there is a copyright infringement, medyo nahihirapan po yung copyright owner. Dadaan pa po sa RTC, pupunta pa sa IPO, pupunta sa OMB. So we are doing a test case ng OMB na po as mandated by 9239 that we can be serving a case as the complainant na kami na po file ng cases against the copyright owners or the producers, sir.
Okay. When were you appointed, Mr. Marquez?
Mr. President, I was appointed last October 2021. I assumed the position as chairman of the Optical Media Board before 1 month. The appointment, which is November, Your Honor.
Last year.
Yes, sir.
So you've been in office for 1 year?
That's correct, sir.
All right. What is your accomplishment?
Sir, as mandated by the Republic Act 9239, the Optical Media Board is tasked to promote and protect the intellectual property rights, as the agency is tasked with 3 fronts in terms of service, one of which is the adjudication, another is the enforcement, and another is our business licensing side. And we would like to inform this honorable body that in terms of the licensing division performance, that we have exceeded the targets that were set in the previous administration by at least 30%. And in terms of other activities, we have also exceeded the targets provided by the DBM in terms of issuing IOs and mission orders for the enforcements. And adjudications, we have also filed cases as well amounting to from May to this current day of 600 plus. And Your Honor, one of the things that we would like to mention.
Before you continue, Mr. President, during the committee hearing, there was 0 administrative cases filed against violators of Republic Act 9239. From November 2021, when you took over, until about July of this year. How can you promote intellectual property rights when there is 0 performance or 0 administrative cases filed?
Mr. President, while I acknowledge that during the questioning.
And you even admitted that there was 0 administrative cases filed during your term, 0 collection filed during your term. Are you being remiss in your duty as the chairman of the OMB?
Mr. President, again, while we acknowledge during the committee hearing, the Honorable Senator raised a few questions. Unfortunately, I was not backed up with data, and I did not want to give
You should know
any
about
data.
it. You should know about it, being the chairperson of the agency.
Yes, sir.
Hindi mo naman kailangan ng backup data.
That's why, sir, after the budget hearing, sir, we wrote the office of the Honorable Senator.
Yes, I've received your letter. In fact, I read your letter. You mean to say you admitted that there was 0 performance in the budget hearing? Pagkatapos ng budget hearing, nagkaroon na kayo ng performance?
Well, Your Honor,
Ganun ba yun?
I felt it more fit to have a conservative number rather than affirm to a much larger statistics that I could not validate, Your Honor. And one of the things, if I may continue, the things that we are doing aside from the hard campaign in terms of enforcement is that we're also be giving extensive efforts on informing the stakeholders of the Optical Media Board Recently kasi, due to the change or shift of technology, the Optical Media Board shifted to storage devices, no longer the CDs or DVDs. And with the passage of the Memorandum Circular of 2018-02, we now have in our wings or our stakeholders those establishments selling phones, smart TVs, laptops, and through our initial review of the pending cases when I arrived in the Optical Media Board, many of the position papers stated that they weren't informed or they did not know that they had to acquire the Optical Media Board license, and stated that they have all the necessary documents from the barangay, local government, DTI, BIR, and even SEC, and that they fully intend to abide by all regulations. And unfortunately, because of the memorandum circular being fairly new, that they weren't informed. So one of the things that we did was we held numerous consultation meetings with different stakeholders, from the distributors, from the importers, and the retailers, aside from also going to numerous local governments, informing the BPLOs of the said local governments of the requirement of the necessary licenses from OMB. And there's still a gap, Your Honor. Even now, sir, even some government agencies still don't require the Optical Media Board license, namely the PSDBM, which they sell laptops, but they still don't require it. So there's still a information gap that we have give priority to, and we'd also like to inform this honorable body that we've also been coordinating with other NGOs and agencies, like the cinema producers that helped us disseminate our, the cinema players, the movie players that help us disseminate our campaign, which is titled The Fit for Change, the Fairness, Integrity, and Transparency, to teach the stakeholders as well and the public na they need the OMB license po.
Mr. Marquez, you mentioned that you collected 1.5 million, am I correct?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
1.6, sir.
As per my information, this collection, yung sinasabi niyo pong 1.5, arose from the case filed prior to your time. Ngayon lang nagbayad during your time. So, ibig sabihin, wala ka pa ring ginawa. It was the time of Attorney Christian Natividad, who is the incumbent mayor of Malolos, Bulacan.
Mr. Chair, it's true that the case was filed during the time of the former chair and now mayor of Malolos, but the case was finalized during my time, and I was the signatory of the said admin case, sir.
Who initiated it, you or your predecessor?
It was filed during my predecessor, sir.
So wala ka nagawa. Anyway, I have a data here that says, during your time as chairman of OMB, number 1, 0 administrative cases filed against RA 9239 from November 2021, when you took over, till about July of this year, 2022. In contrast, the OMB was averaging 200 administrative cases filed each month before you arrived. In fact, the DBM target for administrative cases filed by the OMB per year is 2,500 cases. In 2020, at the height of the pandemic, the OMB filed 1,200 administrative cases, while in 2021, also during the height of the lockdowns, 1,508 administrative cases had been filed from January to November of 2021. From November 22, 2021 until the end of December 2021, during your time, there had been 0 administrative cases filed. Okay, and may I state, in 2018, the administrative penalties collected per year, 2018, 560,000 pesos. 2019, 1,835,000 pesos. 1,835,000 pesos. 2020, 350,000 pesos. 2021, from January to November of 2021, 2,300,000 pesos. 2022, January to August, and that is during your time, zero collection. Okay. I note that recently this month a violator paid a penalty of this is what we're talking about. That recently this month a violator paid a penalty of 1.5 million pesos, but this violator was apprehended and its case resolved during the time of former chairman Christian Natividad. Number 2, zero seizures of counterfeit and illegal storage devices from November 2021, when you took over, till August of this year. In fact, you recently ordered the OMB agents to conduct seizure operations against violators of RA 9239, just so you can have something to report for the budget deliberations in both houses of Congress. The amount of seizure per year by the OMB are as follows. 2018, 736,155,285 pesos. 2019, 309 million, 2018, 736,155,285. 2019, 309,927,224. 2020, 213,488,755. 2021, 78,476,700. And during your time, less than 100,000 pesos. I will mention to you the table of the administrative cases that had been resolved for administrative cases filed from 2018 up to the present. It can be seen that despite failing to file new administrative cases during his almost one-year tenure, you did not even bother to resolve any of the pending or backlogged administrative cases that had been filed during the time of your predecessors. It is as if you did not want to work. In fact, reports reaching my office that you only report to your office once a week. And you did not even bother to sign any document. Everything that you instruct your staff, ginagamit yung e-signature or your stamp signature with your dry seal, all signed by your staff in your office. Resolved administrative cases. During the term of Attorney Adriano, 2,698. During the term of Attorney Christian Natividad, 2,587 resolved admin cases. During the time of Attorney Cyrus Paul Valenzuela, 1,093 resolved admin cases. During your time, zero. Am I correct?
Mr. Chair, the statistics that was shared to you by to us by the senator is partly correct, sir. In terms of the records
What do you
of
mean
2008,
partly correct? Can you expound further?
Yes,
What do
sir.
you mean by partly correct?
Yes, sir.
Hindi ba lahat yun katotohanan? Na zero talaga? Walang koleksyon? Walang seizure? At totoo ba yung sinabi ko, yung 1.5 million na binayad na pinag-uusapan natin, galing pa sa na final yung dating yung iyong predecessor na si Mayor Christian. Ngayon lang nagbayad during your term.
Mr. Chair,
Because you did not resolve anything.
Mr. Chair, in 2018, it is correct that the agency collected 763 million plus, with issuing IOs of 2,644. Likewise, in 2019, we issued IOs of 2,500 and seized items equivalent to 309 million. Again, in 2020, 1,200 IOs equivalent to 213 million. 2021, 1,500 IOs equivalent to 78 million. As you can see, Mr. Chair, from 2018 to 21, the seized items has already been decreasing by more than 50% each year. But in 2022, compared to 2021, we issued 2,174 IOs and mission orders. Unfortunately, it only amounted to 300,508 pesos in terms of seized items, one of which we can explain, Your Honor, that this administration no longer requires the Enforcement Division to confiscate all of the items they see in the establishments. Namimili na lang po kami ng sample size so that we can file. And then, Your Honor, we have filed 600 admin cases to date, and we'd like to say po the case that was mentioned by Honorable Jingo Estrada amounting to a fine of 1.5 million. That case was resolved during my time. We are the ones that signed the resolutions, and we are the ones who resolved it. But yes, the case was filed during the time of Attorney Adriano. And yes, sir, we do report to the office more than once a week. We try to go there more than twice a week, and we take advantage also, if we're not there, of the mediums that available to us in terms of
Mr. Marquez,
Zoom.
can I just interrupt you?
Yes, sir.
I think you're not answering directly my question. Ang tanong ko po, totoo ba ang mga binanggit kong mga datos sa inyo?
Hindi po, sir.
Oh, sinabi mo partially correct. Partly correct. Ngayon, hindi. Ano ba totoo?
Sir, if I may clarify the question, did you ask if totoo ba yung
I
mga-
mentioned the datas, okay? Ulitin ko pa ba?
Sir, everything is true but the zero, sir. Meron naman po kaming mga na-seize, meron naman pong...
Kailan? After the budget hearing?
No, sir. No, sir.
When?
Again, sir, I did not mention this during the budget hearing.
But you admitted during the budget hearing that you never had any seizures, any collections, and now you're telling this body that you have some accomplishments?
Wala king the data available to me at that time, sir. Like I said, I felt that it was more fit to just acknowledge
Ibig niyo
the...
pong sabihin, during nung nag-usap tayo sa budget hearing nung 3 weeks ago, hindi mo alam na meron kang accomplishment?
Sir, I just did not know the exact figure, sir. That's why we wrote right away a response.
Have you apprehended anybody, any violators of this law?
Yes, sir.
How many?
Yeah. So,
1, 2, 3, 4?
so we have issued 2,000...
No, I'm asking you, how many
2,174.
have you apprehended so far during your 1-year stint in the OMB?
So with the corresponding IOs that the EIDs have been issued, the EID, the Enforcement Division, now submits to the legal their findings, and from that, sir, we have enumerated about 600 cases already.
Filed
Filed,
or
sir.
apprehended?
Filed, sir.
How many have you apprehended?
Sir, currently, the Optical Media
When
Board
was
is
this
also...
filed?
When was it filed? From May to... It started from May till present, sir.
May lang?
Yes, sir.
What have you been doing since you were appointed from November 2021 up to May?
Salamat po. Nung pagkaupo ko po, sir, I guess in every agency there is a terms of resistance to change and a few policy changes. Unfortunately, during that early stage, Your Honor, the legal division was not very supportive of the policy changes, and they were not accepting the IOs or MOs that was returned to them by the Enforcement Division. Thus, no admin case could be filed because they were not receiving any of the reports.
Mr. President, if I may, with the permission of
Please.
our distinguished colleague, if I may just interject and ask Mr. President about Betamax and Atari. You're laughing, Mr. President.
Betamax and Atari, what point is that?
I'm sure you love Betamax and Atari. Kasi Mr. President,
VHS.
Yes, Mr. President. Because I heard the word law enforcement, Mr. President. Just a clarificatory question on the part of this representation. How does the enforcement function of the OMB differ, Mr. President, with that of the Intellectual Property Rights Enforcement Office, or the IEO of the Intellectual Property Office? I'm just wondering, Mr. President, may diferensya ba, Mr. President, or it's just the same? I'm raising that question
Yes.
to the
Please
good
proceed.
OMB,
Please
Mr.
proceed.
President.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, if I'm not mistaken, the difference between IPO and OMB is that the copyright owner needs to complain to IPO before they can do the necessary charges, no? But with OMB, as mandated by 9239, we can serve as the complainant already.
And when you talk about enforcement, Mr. President, how does the enforcement function of the OMB differ from those of the Philippine National Police, from the National Bureau of Investigation, or the Bureau of Customs, Mr. President? Are they the same, or?
Mr. Chair, we have, may sinusunod po kaming operations manual, sir. So,
May we know the difference, Mr. President? You know, from where I'm coming from, Mr. President, all I wanted to know is that is OMB, that's why I started by saying I wanted to ask questions with regard to Betamax and Atari, and I don't see any Betamax and Atari anymore. So when you talk about OMB, and this has been the talk of the town for the past few days here in the lounge, here in the Senate session hall, kung may diferensya ba, Mr. President? So I wanted to find out, is there a difference? For example, if I report to PNP, sabihin ba sa akin ng PNP, hindi namin pwedeng i-enforce ang batas dahil may OMB tayo, sila lang ang pwedeng gumawa niyan. Is that correct, Your Honor? Pwede po ba yan? Or NBI, sabihin, hindi kami pwede dyan. OMB lang yan.
Si Secretary Riela.
Well, Mr. President, to help out our friends from OMB, another question that I'd like to ask is, in your enforcement operations, would you coordinate your enforcement operations with the law enforcement agencies to back up, for backup or reinforcement, such as, for example, PNP, to undertake raids and seizure of goods, Mr. President?
Mr. Chair, in our previous enforcements, even in the previous administration, they have opted numerous times to acquire the help and the assistance of the PNP.
That's exactly my point, Mr. President. Kung hindi na nila kung kailangan din nila yung PNP para i-enforce ito, bakit pa meron sila? So again, Mr. President, I don't want to belabor the issue, but I also wanted to ask, how many operators do you have? How many enforcement agents does the office of, the Optical Media Board have, Mr. President?
We have 36 enforcement
36.
and
36, Mr. President. Enforcers po yan.
investigative agents and enforcement
36,
agents.
Mr. President, covering the entire country.
Yes, Your Honor.
So again, Mr. President, anong gagawin itong 36 na ito kung hihingi rin sila ng tulong sa PNP, sa NBI, yung enforcement, hindi rin nila magagawa, Mr. President. Anyway, Mr. President, on the average, how many establishments does the OMB inspect in a year? Yun na lang po sa isang taon.
Sir, this year we've already inspected 2,174.
Kayo lang po yung nag-inspect noon, wala kayong ibang kasama.
No, sir, kami lang po.
So what is the universe of the total number of establishments? If you say, I'm sorry, how many, Mr. President?
Those are just the inspections that we serve. But in terms of the licenses, sir, this first quarter we issued 2,820 licenses. The second quarter we issued 2,010. And
Perhaps a year na lang, sir, Your Honor.
so roughly we have already issued about 7,000 licenses, sir.
7,000 licenses.
And
So
almost
you
20,000.
issued, Mr. President, not inspect. So kasi kung sinasabi nyo 7,000 establishments po ba yun? Na-inspect po ninyo?
These are the applicants that
The applicants,
yes,
you
applied
inspect
for
every applicant.
with
This
the
is, how do you do this, sir? You go to these areas or the applicants actually just submit the documents?
They prescribe to the requirements that the board has set, and whether
So
they
it's just
apply online.
documents, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor.
So it's nothing really like you go there and inspect. Meron ba silang ginagawa na kalokohan, etc. Now, Mr. President, my question is, yung universe, Mr. President, what is the universe of the total number of establishments that are subject to inspection?
So that is the figure that
We don't have that.
we're still requesting the Department of Trade and Industry for that.
So again, it's the trade and industry who has the data, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, Senator Estrada. I just want to put that on record, Mr. President, because, based on the staffing summary of DBM, OMB has only 77 permanent positions, 70 are filled, there are only 36 enforcers. I just want to put that on record, Mr. President, kasi, again, kung walang diferensya with the IEO of the IPO, walang pwedeng gawin ng OMB na sila lang ang pwedeng gumawa, I wonder, Mr. President, what are we doing with this agency and with the performance that we have been hearing? Nakakalungkot lang, Mr. President. But I will leave it at that, and I'll give back the floor to our distinguished colleague, Senator Jinggoy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. According to Senator Allen, that was the shortest intervention. Anyway, for the record, Mr. President, I personally welcome the information relayed by the chairperson of the OMB in relation to the number of seizures they conducted since May of this year, which is contrary to the information we received and to the previous admission of the chairman na talagang zero seizures. Kaya lang, hindi ko maiwasan talaga na magduda sa katotohanan ng mga pahayag ng inyong chairman. Okay, my next question is online piracy under your jurisdiction?
No, Your Honor.
No. So, kasi maraming mga piracy ngayon na nangyayari sa online. Katulad nung, for example, yung mga hindi na palabas because of the pandemic, supposedly palalabas sa mainstream, ay napilitan na lang ipalabas sa online, sa internet. Karamihan doon, sa mga pelikulang pinalalabas, hindi na ipalabas because of the pandemic, na ipalabas na lang sa online. O sino ang pwedeng manghuli or sino dapat ang managot dun sa online piracy na nangyari?
Mr. Chair, that's actually part of one of our proposals in terms of our roadmap, in terms of drafting a draft bill of called the Anti-Digital Piracy Act. As we acknowledge that the shift of mediums is no longer with the CDs, and also the hard drives medyo diminishing na rin po. It's really in the cloud and streaming na po. So right now, our mandate does not cover that, but
All right. The law that created the OMB, what is the real function of, what is the purpose of this law? Is to fight piracy.
well, the policy is to protect and to promote the intellectual property rights, but our main function po is to regulate the manufacturing, the replication, the
To
distribution
combat piracy.
of the
In short.
of the medium, Your Honor.
Yes,
Yung
to
medium
combat
po.
piracy.
Opo.
Okay. Ngayon ay nasa advanced stage na tayo ng technology. Wala na mga DVD, wala na mga CD, mukhang hard drive na yung, hindi naman ako techie, no? Mukhang hard drive na yung ginagamit. So ano pa yung magiging function ninyo? Sino pa uhulihin ninyo?
But Mr. Chair, when it comes to piracy activities, we have records submitted to us by NCIPR that the Philippines still ranks amongst, in terms of other countries in the world, na mataas yung ranking natin in terms of engaging in illegal downloading and in illegal streaming. And we acknowledge that our agency is tasked to protect the intellectual property rights. That's why we are taking the initiative, Your Honor, na kami na muna mag-draft ng Digital Anti-Piracy Act for Congress to act and hopefully see that the OMB can shift to a different means in terms of
So you
protecting.
want us to amend the law that created the agency?
For us to be more effective, Your Honor, that would be something that we
In
we
fact,
would
I'm
open.
contemplating on abolishing your agency, Mr. Chair, because of the lackluster performance. Because of your lackluster performance, I'm sorry. And in fact, I have received information during your Christmas party of last year. You purchased gift baskets and was given to your employees. Am I right?
Mr. Chair, that was all done by personal funds, private funds, and no funds from the OMB was used for the purchases of the gifts given to, or baskets given.
Bakit dumaan sa bidding kung ano?
Hindi
kung
po
wala-
dumaan sa bidding, Your Honor.
No, my data states here. It was only on January 27, 2022 that the Bids and Awards Committee partook in the discussion of bidding the same. Kung private funds yun, bakit kailangan dumaan sa bidding? That I cannot understand.
Your Honor, hindi po dumaan po sa
What
bidding.
is this bidding all about?
We
And
can,
3 members of the BAC decided not to partake of the matter. As how can they be discussing the bidding of the same when such had already been procured as early as December 19 of 2021, when the same was delivered to the OMB office and distributed to every employee?
Your Honor, the Optical Media Board can submit reports given to COA and
So pinilalabas nyo na private funds yun dahil you have already violated the law.
no, sir.
Ano itong bidding na nung naganap noong January 27?
Wala pong bidding, Your Honor.
There was a bidding.
Session suspended for 1 minute. Uy, bawal yan. Bawal yan pag hindi kasama sa SP.
Christmas baskets, okay? And I will take your word for it. Okay, on another note, there was a pending measure during the 18th Congress in the House of Representatives, authored by Combined Party List Ron Salo, abolishing the OMB as the industry it seeks to regulate is an obsolete industry. Video shops, compact discs, ano po masasabi niyo rito?
Okay to, Jay.
Would
Mr.
you
Chair-
agree that the use of compact discs and video rentals are now obsolete? Kung
Mr.
hindi,
Chair-
kung hindi po sa inyong pagtaya, gaano po kalaganap ang paggamit nitong CDs, Betamax, at mga videotapes?
Mr. Chair, this is exactly the reason why Memorandum Circular 2018-02 was passed by the Optical Media Board, because the shift of technology shifted away from the media devices, optical media devices. So nagkaroon po ng ibang medium yung pag-store ng content. So because of that, kaya po namin regulate ngayon yung mga storage devices, sir, is us basically going with the time of the advancements of technology, Your Honor.
Well, anyway, Mr. President, I still believe that the data submitted to me, because of your lackluster performance in your stint as the OMB chairman, and considering the dismal performance of the OMB under the current leadership, and the obsolete technology that it has regulatory jurisdiction over, various suggestions and ideas were raised, including the abolition of the agency altogether. The recommendation to abolish requires a drastic move and amendment of our laws and could affect the livelihood of approximately 100 employees and their families. Ayoko naman po mangyari ito. Kasunod ng maling pamamalakad ng kanilang pinuno. Ayaw na natin lumawa pa ang bilang ng mga unemployed sa panahon nito. And this representation may introduce at the proper time a legislative proposal to transfer the functions of the OMB, if not to abolish the OMB, to other existing executive offices such as the FDCP or the Department of Trade and Industry, specifically the Intellectual Property Office of the Philippines, as OMB serves the function of ensuring and ensuring the protection and promotion of intellectual property rights, including software and sound recording. Mr. President, at the proper time, I will move that the budget of the Optical Media Board be reduced and we retain the budget of the personal services, because I still believe that the chairman of the OMB has not performed his function and duties as chairman of the OMB. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for your insights, Senator Jinggoy. Estrada, that's very, that's an eye-opener. So
Mr.
we have to
President.
ask the OMB to step up their work, step up their job. Yeah, I can't understand why there's no apprehensions for 1 year.
May
Ang da-
I,
ang daming
say something?
nagpo-proliferate,
Mr.
so.
President, the gentleman from San Juan would also...
This must serve as a stern warning to all public officials remiss in their duties as public officials. And I would like to warn all public officials that who are serving under this administration to wake up and to work. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Mr. President, I move that we terminate the suspension of the rules of the Senate. I so move, Mr. President.
There being no objection, the motion is approved.
Mr. President, no member wishes to interpolate or ask any questions on the... Mr. President, may I ask that we recognize the Minority Leader, Senator Coco
Our
Pimentel.
distinguished Senate Minority Floor Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just got an insight from the interpellation na during the budget hearing, if you do not know the answer, if the answer is a figure, you do not use zero as the answer because you're also not sure that it is zero. So, I think yun na naging root cause. So, let this be a lesson to everybody. Sabi, mas maganda siguro, sagutin na lang na I don't have the information at the moment, di ba? Kasi kaysa sa you answer zero, you're also not sure na zero din yung tamang sagot eh. So, anyway, so ano na po, advice and warning at the same time.
That comes from
thank you, Mr.
our
Chair.
resident mathematician.
Yes, Mr. President, Senator Alan Peter Cayetano wishes
Senator
to be recognized.
Cayetano
I
is
move that-
recognized.
Senator Jinggoy's warning is a very good general warning to everyone to wake up. But not now, it's 1:30 in the morning.
Senator Cayetano, on point every time. On point every time. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to thank all our colleagues who've stayed up this late to finish the budget for this evening. So I commend you all. And of course, I'd like to thank the OMB also for their time here. And I'm sure they've taken to heart the recommendations of our good Senator Jinggoy Estrada, who is really passionate about piracy. So I'm sure that we will continue this discussion about piracy, and we will work together to make sure that the intellectual properties and these departments become responsive to the needs of our, especially our entertainment industry and other industries that depend on intellectual property rights. So thank you very much to everyone.
Yes, and if there's a lack of budget that is needed, the chairman of the subcommittee is well enough to be able to write off a check to give and help the OMB.
Thank you for that.
Mr. President, si
Yes.
Senator Mark Villar, hindi daw po siya galit kasi wala pang gumagaya sa Camellia Homes. Mr. President, kidding aside, Mr. President,
no comment to that. Okay.
let me just put on record this representation's position, Mr. President, is that when the executive asked that we study all agencies and departments of the government, we feel that it is indeed the right time to do right sizing, Mr. President.
Yes.
Because we can see easily, it's so glaring, Mr. President, the duplication of work, and that's all I wanted to raise, Mr. President, as I interjected a while ago.
Actually, after these budget deliberations, Senator Angara will be very busy discussing the right sizing bill. And so, we are, Chairman of Finance ba yun? Ang magdi-discuss, Majority Leader. But if it's civil service, pero kasama yata ang finance dyan. Yeah, so you're going to help out Senator Bong Revilla on coming up with the measure that will right-size government. So at least it's an eye-opener for many of our members and colleagues here, especially the newcomers in the Senate. Senator Padilla, Bongo is already on his second half of his term. But at least you can see that there are many government agencies that we can fuse together. We need to fuse them together for efficient and effective government service.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, let's go
Mr.
home.
President, at this juncture,
Let's
it's
approve first the budget.
1:36 a.m. and there being no other reservation for interpellation, I move that we close the period of interpellations and debate and consider the budget of the Optical Media Board be deemed submitted for the body's consideration. I so move, Mr.
The
President.
budget, there being no objection, the budget of the Optical Media Board is deemed submitted. Congratulations.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, at this juncture, I move that we suspend the session until
10:30.
10:30 o'clock in the morning of Tuesday, today, Mr. President. Later, November 15, 2022. I so move, Mr. President.
Kaya ba ng ating secretariat? I want to ask the secretariat, can we do this? Kaya natin? Kaya natin. Okay. Therefore, since tomorrow is a very heavy day, we have a lot of big departments that will take up. We'll beg the indulgence of everyone and come tomorrow at 10:30. There being no objection to the motion of the Majority Leader, the session is suspended till 10:30 in the morning later, November 15.